Give me more out-of-conference rivalries. The one thing that I liked, and listen, Temple, not a tremendously historic football program, but the best part of Temple was they would play Penn State when I went to school there, and it would give you a reason to go up to Happy Valley, or it'd give you a reason for your Penn State friends to come down to Philadelphia and spend the whole weekend there and tailgate. And it was a lot of fun. And you know what? I know I think we're like 40-4 all time against them. And I know Temple's not going to win 9 of 10, but that 10th one when they sacked Christian Hackenberg 10 times, that was a where were you moment. That's a top 10 Philly moment in my life, which is the saddest thing in the world. But we have that one. We'll always continue to have that one. Give me more out of conference games. Kev, what do you think?
I just can't get over the fact, man, that you have these like great classic rivalries and traditional games and whatnot, and they're out of conference games. And they aren't played every year. You know, Penn State and Pitt played like 90 some times going back to the late 1800s. And then they stopped in 2000. They had that gap from 2000 to 2016 where they didn't play. And then Penn State and Pitt played 4 times in a row. I think Penn State went 3-1 in those. Now Penn State's got West Virginia back on the schedule in 2023, and we added Pitt back on the schedule. But like my take was always that those teams should always try to play each other every year. I know that Penn State fans have a portion of them have this thing where they're like, we're bigger than Pitt and Syracuse and whatever, and we have to be bigger if we're gonna compete with like the Ohio States and the Michigans and be this big Big Ten school and have national title aspirations. But I always just felt like college football is better when you have those. You know, when geography matters and, you know, you got local teams playing each other and keep it regional and fans travel and just makes it more exciting. And so I think when you go to the super conference shit, it just kind of kills all that.
Kevin, you'll get this. And Kyle, you probably will too. You Spurs fan, you. Like the consolidation of most of the major programs in the country going to 2 super conferences almost feels like what some of the top clubs in England were trying, or in Europe were trying to do with the Super League, right? So I guess, is there a question here about whether college football would have been better served if they had put together some kind of an in-season or a separate playoff for the top programs to qualify for, akin to like what a Europa League or a Champions League would look like? You have to maintain the integrity of your conference. Like, instead of splitting out to the Big Ten and the Pac, like what if, or the SEC, like what if they had just kept those conferences as is, but whoever the top 2 finishers were, the top 3 finishers were in each of the major conferences played in a separate tournament. Now I know that like there's probably a conflict because of wear and tear on the bodies of college athletes and about academics and everything. But if the idea here is that these conferences and these teams wanted to make as much money as possible with these super conferences, why couldn't they have just done a separate tier for those teams while still helping to generate money for the other teams that rely on the money and will play against these teams if for no other reason than it financially benefits them?
And who's to say that it's not heading in that direction anyway? You know, if you polled people and you said, you know, if I gave you 2 options, one, do the conferences and set it up the way that we have now, and we'll have like Wake Forest and Pitt and Clemson all playing each other in the ACC, or we'll do like a one-off kind of superstar thing where it's like you got Clemson, Bama, Georgia, you know, Auburn, Michigan, Ohio State playing each other in like a round robin thing, or we did like a separate, like, you know, like a Champions League of college football. I mean, you'd have most people sign up for that, wouldn't you?
I think it's going more Super League, like you guys were saying. I think we're going to get into a Super League.
We love parity in sports, right? And so, like, imagine Alabama goes out and they win the national championship this year, and they qualify for this like Champions League tournament next year, but in week 2 of the season, their quarterback blows out his knee, and they are effectively out of the running for the national championship next year. But they still have this other tournament or this other, you know, playoff that they're taking part in. Now, all of a sudden, it's even more intriguing if you see Alabama go up against like an LSU or go up against an Ohio State at full strength. Because now, all of a sudden, you've put into play the possibility that like Alabama can be an underdog against OSU, right? Like there's something really neat about that, but you miss out on that when you consolidate, you know, and create these super conferences, because sure, conceptually you might still get some of those matchups, but the stakes aren't there. You know, like it's a different thing. And it feels like too often you're just out of it. You know, like that's the one thing I don't like about college football is you have one bad injury, you pick up a loss or 2, you are out of the national championship conversation. And
but they're extending the playoff to 12 games in the next couple of years, so that'll fix that. I mean, the top 12 teams.
Yeah, and I guess
like for right now, it doesn't. For now, it doesn't help. Versus like college basketball, you've got your
I don't know though, because
your
if
smaller
you're
attorneys.
the way these teams recruit the good teams now. I mean, look at Ohio State. Someone transfers every single year because they get an even better quarterback or an even better running back. Like the transfer portal is insane. Like,
So EJM says it feels like expanding the playoff to 16 teams and playing all of December would accomplish the same thing as doing a Super League, Champions League. And I think that's probably inevitably where they're headed. And I think my perspective on this, like I'm thankful I have this perspective because I went and lived in the South for a couple of years, where in a city where there wasn't a pro team. And so like I got the experience of the college football program down there being the biggest thing there. And so you go super conference or you focus on only, the best teams, like a Champions League kind of thing. You're telling a team like pick a Mississippi State, right? Saying like, at the end of the day, you probably don't matter, right? In the bigger scheme of things. I mean, but college football in Starkville and in Oxford and in that state is huge.
mm-hmm.
So it's like it's the same argument that the soccer teams had when like Liverpool and Manchester, whoever it was, we're talking about leaving for the Super League or whatever. Like, is Newcastle United going to win the Champions League? No. Are they still massive in that city? Yes. So how do you make it so that you have the best teams playing against each other and you have like great television and great theater for college football fans, but these like good second level, third level SEC and Big Ten programs and Pac-12 programs don't get left behind? Like, you're going to tell me that nobody like gives a shit about like I'll sit there and watch Oregon and Oregon State any day of the week, So it's like you just don't want that to get lost in the shuffle,
I haven't really fleshed this out, but is it like an EPL kind of model where it's like EPL, then it's Championship League, then it's this league, then it's League One, League Two, national level? Like, is it that kind of thing where it's like, hey, there's these super conferences on top, and then here's the WAC, here's the Big Sky, here's unfortunately,
it'd be more interesting if you did like relegation and promotion. Yeah, like that'd be really cool.
Yeah,
because the Rel Pro model actually working in the US.
Like the big programs would never go for it though, right? Like, because going back to like, if you don't want to pick Alabama, like I don't know, guys. Like I don't live and breathe college football. So like take Pitt, right? Pitt's 17 to start the season. Like, why would Pitt decide that like they want to vote in favor of that, right? Because for them, one or two big injuries could realistically put them in a position where they would move down. And like presumably that could affect them adversely in a few different ways, including like TV rights and any money that comes in. You'd also have to kind of contend with that. I don't know how you would justify giving the same financial compensation on TV packages to that top league versus the second or third division, like that to me, money driven, all that, like, unless it already exists like it does in soccer in Europe, I don't know how you could implement that in the US. It would be really cool. It'd be really interesting. It sure as hell would make like, end of season games when a team is, out of contention. It would make those a whole hell of a lot more important, but getting some of these programs to agree to it, I just don't see it.
I don't know. I mean, I could kind of see it because like you got your Clemsons and you got your Oxford, Mississippi's and you got your Jacksons. It's kind of looking like I was just started watching the Southampton doc on Netflix, and I started watching the Wrexham doc, and Wrexham like owns the team, and they had to have a 75% threshold for McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds to take over that team. So kind of like the fans own the team in a way. And there's a lot of these small areas that are kind of like in London where like a Leeds just got promoted. Like, I don't know. I kind of could see the pro-rel argument working because, yes, you're going to get paid top dollar to go to the EPL. But then again, and now I'm coming back to earth where it's like, well, how are you going to sell these? How are you going to sell these kids to come to these colleges?
There would be great parity in those leagues too, because I mean, like in a top division, you'd have Georgia playing Clemson, playing Southern Cal every week, and then in the second division, you'd have like
Oregon, Utah State, or I don't know,
Pitt playing a BYU, playing a Kentucky or something. I mean, like those aren't super sexy, but they're all competitive games.